Y'all, Miss Internet is not my friend today. Oh my goodness. How is everybody doing today? How y'all doing? Cause me and Miss Internet gonna fight today. I am Danny Terrell, and this is Intimate Conversations with District Forum for Arts and Ideas. Again, y'all, I tried to get here on time. I was ready. But Miss Internet was like, nope, we are not having you on today. There is Miss Elisheba Johnson. I hope your internet's working for you today.
I think the internet is
Mine?
tired.
Oh my God,
So,
it is so tired.
it seems like it's working okay. Can you hear me?
Good. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. I'm
So,
just trying to put in this information really quick. Um, y'all, I hope y'all are ready for a decent time. I'm gonna say decent right now because the internet, again, I think that's it, Alicia, but the internet's like, look, I'm tired of y'all. Get it together. Um, so I'm excited that you are here. I've been trying to talk to you for a real long time, as you know.
yes, yes.
And you finally said yes.
I said yes before, kind of, but yeah, I'm a very
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, kind of said yes before, but got the official yes. Just a little business. As you all know, this is Intimate Conversations with Danny Terrell. We are here with Central District Forum for Arts and Ideas. We acknowledge that we are on the stolen land of the traditional home of the Coastal Salish people, the Duwamish people. And as you know, we come from African ancestors. We come from African folks, enslaved folks in this land. And so just wanted to honor the Duwamish people, wanted to honor the fact that this land was stolen and stripped from them, and not necessarily honor that, but honor the fact that we are on their land and acknowledge what actually happened to them. It was not given over nicely. I want to acknowledge the fact that our ancestors were brought here in a brutal way. And so that is just what I want to put into the space today. Central District Forum for Arts and Ideas is a nonprofit organization solely dedicated to presenting emerging Black artists, and ideas in the Seattle area. We believe in the value of community, creativity, identity, and passion. These values serve as our strategic plan and they guide our day-to-day operations and program decisions. I'm excited to talk to Elisheba Johnson, who you will get to know more of in a second. Um, she is a dope artist, curator, person that I'm still getting to know and just always in awe of the work that she does in the community. I've asked every single guest on Intimate Conversations this question: what is Black love? What does Black love look like to them? And Elishaba's response was, Black love looks like that photo of James Brown, yes, and Maya Angelou, dancing, euphoric, delightful, and free. That sums it up. That is, if you don't know that photo, people, Google that photo. Like, just Google it and you will understand what she's talking about. Um, Elishaba, what are you bringing into the space today and who are you bringing into the space today?
Right now, early, we did an artist talk, Andrea Coleman, and her work is very much about taking, photos from her family and her really getting to know these people in her family.
Mm-hmm. You're breaking up just a little bit. Yes. Uh-oh, Lisha, but you're breaking up just a little bit. Uh-oh. Internet is not allowing us to be great today. There you are. Wait. Elishaba, you may have to log out and come back on. It's a little choppy. We're going to get through this. Uh-oh. Y'all, I don't know what's going on with the internet. Uh-oh. Elishaba. Uh-oh. Okay. Hopefully she'll come back in. Because you know. Okay. We're going to try to get her back in. This going to work, y'all.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
I thought I could hear you. You there,
Can you
Danny?
hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you now. Yay!
Yes. You were saying some stuff and I'm like, we're missing all of it. Why?
Oh no! Oh, you want me to start over?
Yes. Why
Okay.
not?
Okay, great. No, I was just saying, so Andrea Coleman is an artist that we're exhibiting right now at Wa Na Wari.
Mm-hmm.
And her work is all about family photos and kind of researching her family history. And I've been doing that on my own as well. So I was saying I had just got a photograph of my grandmother, my mother's mother.
Yeah.
Um, and I had posted it to my Instagram, but really saying, like, really feeling like I get to know her and feeling like I get to know more of myself, right? So bringing
Right.
that to the space. I said I was bringing Alistine New, that's her name, but also just like strength and resilience in this moment because it's been really rough. It's been rough on everybody. So yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And that's really beautiful because I'm always consistently talking about my grandmothers and fortunately, you know, I was able to at least meet two of my great grandmothers and I've known like my maternal grandmother and paternal grandmother. So that's always been a beautiful part. What does that mean to you to reconnect in this way with her?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been jealous of black. I mean, you know, because black folks have this like real relationship to our grandmothers, right?
Yes.
So every other black person I know would be like, oh, my grandmother this, or, you know, and I didn't
Hmm.
know either of them. So my dad's mother passed away
Mm.
6 months before I was born, and my
Wow.
mother's mother died when she was 6.
Right.
So it's felt like this missing love, like the
Hmm.
love of what a grandmother gives you, the food they cook, the stories they tell,
Right.
the way they hold you, always feels like I always felt like that was missing for me. And so um I what was interesting is like I started asking some friends a couple weeks ago. I was like, who do I look like?
Mm.
And they were like, well, you don't, like, you kind of look like your dad and you kind of look like your mom, but like you're not like, you know what I mean? And so all these people were like, oh, you look like your grandmother Elistine,
Wow.
like when I post. And it felt like, oh, that's a missing piece of the puzzle of like actually understand, like,
Right.
especially like being a black woman in the world and like how our beauty is not cherished in the same way, to like see a
Hmm.
woman that I think is beautiful and knowing that I look like her
Right.
felt like so empowering. Like it was something that I really needed. So anyway, so I'm working through all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
I saw the Yeah, I was saying I saw the picture and she's absolutely stunning. Like I saw that and I was just like, oh yes, like yes, very beautiful. You are a black woman in that you work in the art sector and administration. You are an artist. You graduated from Cornish College of the Arts. You are now you've always been a curator, and you are in Wa Na Wari, what does that mean for this city?
Oh, a lot. Oh, that's where do you begin with that?
Yeah.
And some of these things, like I don't mean to be a broken record, but I feel like when I give talks, I give kind of the same talking
Mm-hmm.
notes because it's my story. So like if I forgive me if people have heard some of these things before, but born and raised Seattleite. My parents moved here from Chicago.
Okay.
So I was born here at University Hospital, and at that time, Seattle was 12% Black. And then, as we know now, it's about 6%. So I like literally have seen and felt half of the Black population leave the city, right?
Right.
Um, which I laugh about now because I'm like, I used to complain all the time there wasn't enough Black people in Seattle, and now I'm like, please come back. Get back to that 12%.
Right.
Sorry, I should have never said anything. So but people who are from here feel it too. From
Yeah.
there just used to be more of a presence, and so also it was just easier to live here, right? Like financially. And so one of the examples I give was, I had my son. I was living with a roommate, and I was paying $1,100 a month for a 3-bedroom in West Seattle. I moved back home with my parents for a while because I thought it'd be like temporary,
Right.
like a year to get on my feet. And within that year, that same apartment now, is a $2,800 apartment. So I was
Yeah.
literally priced out of the market when I was like trying to situate myself as a new mom. And so again, it's like it felt like it was overnight, and I can tell stories about how it was not overnight, and I could see it coming. But you see the economic impact of Black folks having to leave the city, and what that's done to our creative sector, right? So having a project like Wa Na Wari, where we're really centering Black artists, just like CD Forum has been doing for over 20 years, and what Langston is doing. And really, I know I've talked about how all three of us are kind of dealing with the same issue of which is how do you get folks who used to live in this neighborhood to come back for your programming?
Exactly.
And it's me and Inye have these conversations all the time. But like, if you live down the street from somewhere, you'll go you'll watch a risky play or a risky performance.
Exactly.
It's not that much. Whereas like if you're coming from Federal Way, it's like, I want to make sure it's good. I want to see Alvin Ailey. I'm going to see you know what I mean? You're going to go to something that is going to be worth the parking and all the other stuff.
Exactly.
So we're all trying to deal with that, and we know it's really important. And then also, how do you foster a Black arts community when artists themselves are displaced and trying to figure out how to keep making work, and how do you support them? So interestingly enough, I think the pandemic has shifted some of that because people can live, all over Washington and still tap into our programming, right? Like they can tap it. I just saw my friend who's in Puerto Rico tap in. So people can do that, right? So, but also just, there has always been a really rich Black arts community in the Northwest. And I think that there's like a uniqueness to Northwest Black folks, right? So one of my really good friends is Zenobia Bailey, grew up here, lives in New York. But she talks all the time about like how the landscape and the people have like infiltrated her artwork, right? And she was like, I wish I could have stayed, but again, the connection to other Black artists. But I say that because the people who are doing work here are actually like next level Afrofuturists, like really interesting. And I think that it's important for all three of our organizations to be an ecosystem to support that so it can keep flourishing, for sure.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up all three organizations. How do we, as organizations, really bridge the gap between what we do? Because at this point in time, pandemic and Black folks especially Black artists and Black thinkers are getting pushed out of Seattle. How do we work together to keep that connection strong? How do we genuinely support each other?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all friends. One, so that part is easy.
Yes.
But, I think some of it is like systemic, and we can't pretend it's not, right? Like, I speak about all three of us freely because we support each other and there's no competition there. And that's about the ecosystem. But like, you already know that like people are picking and choosing who they want to give their dollars to when it comes to Black folk, and they want to pin us against each other. And so like the biggest part is probably like shifting that framework of like the crabs in a barrel. I want to be the only Negro in the room, to how do we act,
Mm,
there's enough abundance for all of us. Um,
true.
and also like we're just all grinding so hard, right? So how do we create space to actually be able to generate and create partnerships, when you're just also just kind of trying to pay the rent and pay your employee
Right.
and keep it going. So
Right.
I think we all have those goals, and I think people see us as aligned. So I see it happening, but you know, we also need to like rest and go to sleep.
Yes. That has been, look, this pandemic, I have rested more than what it actually looks like, but I've been setting that boundary. Wa Na Wari opened up and like just blew the roof off of everything.
Thank you.
Um, it really has. Like, we cannot deny that. We cannot deny that it is a place that not just Black folks, but all folks come in and feel very comfortable. But I think Black folks are like, this is ours. Like, there's a beautiful sense of ownership that like we can step in here and like just breathe. Why do you think that is? I
Well,
mean, Inye and you, of course, but
and Jill Friedberg and Rachel Kessler, I want to give them a shout out too.
yay.
Our white allies, co-founders that like to see the background, but they are, you know, very important to this work. Um,
Awesome.
I think it's all of the stuff that I kind of mentioned before. Sorry about the airplane. Um, you know, I used to have a gallery a long time ago,
Yes.
or not that long ago. I don't know how you want to put it, but it was from 2006 to 2012. I had Faire Gallery Café, and there was so many things you could do at that time. There was Lucid Lounge, there was the Electric Tea Garden, there was Punctuation
Yeah.
Time. Like I can just name all these things that were run by people of color, where people of color
Mhm.
could go and like listen to music, kick it, whatever. And because of the unaffordability crisis that Seattle is in, it's just way more expensive to do that, right? So I just believe in giving people numbers. Like when I started Faire in 2006 for an 895 square foot space, it was $1,500. It was
Mhm.
couple of years ago. It's a flower shop now, but a friend checked it out and it was over 3,000, right? So it doubled. And it's not that big of a space. But I say that to say the experimentation that we were able to do, where people could just be like, I'm just going to do a thing and see if it works. It's not there anymore, right? The pressure is so much more. And people don't want to go into that risk or take that type of debt on. And so
Right.
when we opened up, I felt like people felt the vacuum of not having these types of spaces to be able to do stuff. Like I used to be able to tell people 10, 12 galleries they could go to show it. And now I'm hard pressed to think of
Hmm.
to show their work, right? And so I just felt like people, they were ready for this, right? They
Yes.
starved for it and they were like, no, we want to make sure something like this stays and exists. Because there's just not a lot of cultural space. And that's
Right.
important to us to kind of make sure people understand that this is a community space and a cultural space and an experimentation space.
Right. And for those of you that don't know, Wa Na Wari is also an extension, a part of Inye's family, Inye Wakoma. And it is important that we need to say that it is in a historically Black neighborhood in Seattle, the Central District. And again, you all could have opened up the space anywhere. You could have done it anywhere. But why was it important? One, to keep it in the family in multiple ways. Like it's in the family in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, like, as you start a project like this, you start to learn things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'll go back a bit, but like Inye had a dream or a vision of turning this home into a cultural space at one time. He just didn't know when or how. Um, and the four of us had been working together on some other projects. We had crossed paths in many different ways, but there was
Mm-hmm.
trust between the four of us, which is important as well. And then we just started really thinking, what would it mean? Because this is a rental property that supported Inye's grandmother until she passed a couple months ago. God bless her soul.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of like, instead of you putting that house on the market to just like a tech worker or anybody else, right? And he's the guardian of this house. So he had to get market rate rent to be able to support keeping this house in his grandmother's assets, right? Which is something of Black homeowners are struggling with, right? Like, how do you keep up with your property taxes and all the other expenses?
Exactly.
And so we were like, what if we rent it and then we give it back to the community as an arts and cultural center? So a huge part of our work is, can arts and culture be an anti-displacement strategy? Other ways that, you know, artists could rent a spare room from an elder, and that could help them.
Right.
They could keep their house, but then they could have an affordable studio space. So part of the work of Case 21, that is the work that Inye leads, which is right now in the research and survey phase with a lot of really incredible community folks, including KCN and the University of Washington, is they're going to be putting out a survey to Black homeowners and Black cultural workers, really asking what their needs are and
Right.
pushing up against zoning policy, right? So when we opened, you know, we were like, okay, you can have a business in a house, and we found out that you actually, the way you can have a business in a house is extremely prohibitive. So we went through the process on purpose, even though it was expensive, to change our zoning from single family to community center, so that we could use that as an example for other people that might need to do something of this nature. Because we know in Seattle, you know, back to everything's all connected to in my life, you know, interesting way, like, right? But like, this town has kind of like bowed down and kissed the feet of developers, right?
Yeah.
They rezoned the Central District, which is, like you mentioned, is a historically a redlined neighborhood that was a home for Black folks, Japanese folks, and Jewish folks, and made it easier for developers to come in here and make these like 5-story, 7-story apartment complexes, whatever. But if you go to Laurelhurst, ain't nobody doing that there, right? So they always do this to us, right? We're actually saying, okay, if you're going to change the zoning policy, how does that actually benefit me? How can we use these same policies to make it so I can actually stay in my home, and use arts and culture as the tool to do that? So we're really excited about that. And it's still, it's like a massive vision that we're still taking bite-sized chunks out of, but I'm really interested in like what that will turn into and what the future holds.
That's awesome. You you are a curator, and you've curated some beautiful work inside of Wa Na Wari and throughout the Seattle area. What is it about being a curator which like gets your blood pumping up? Like, what is that excitement about?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I feel like I fell into curating, you know. It was maybe the last week of college or something like that, and they said only 10% of you will still be making art in 10 years. And I'm saying, well, if I'm not making art in 10 years, I'll be curating. That's what I'll do. I'll always be in the arts. And I got out of school, and you can't just walk into a gallery and like show them your portfolio and you know. So I had a couple like group shows that I did, and I was really trying to figure out like how to get into the art world. And that I started spitballing ideas with friends, and that's how Faire Gallery Café came about. And so it was really stepping myself aside and realizing, look, why don't I create a space that I need? Which one that too, right? Like, I, as somebody who experiences viscerally in my body the loss of Black people in Seattle, having a space that centers my whole being and my whole self is what I need, right? So it's in some way. But so, you know, I say that anyways. So I've exhibited artists for a really long time, and I feel like the last couple of years of my life, that was where I really started understanding for myself what it means to be a curator, what it means to explore ideas and thesis statements basically about the world through the art of other people.
Right.
And that has just been a capacity thing, because in my life I've just had to like get a show open and make sure that somebody was there and I would like their work. But I've spent much more time with the artists in the last couple of years that I've worked with, either through the Portland Biennial or through Wa Na Wari, really trying to understand the questions that I have about life in the world and looking at their work as the answers to those questions for myself. So, I'm excited about that. I feel like I'm really growing in that practice, and it's an inquiry. So yeah, anyways, I have a long way to go. I don't have a master's degree or anything, so I know there's a lot of there's like smarty pants curators and stuff, and I still matter and hang things.
Yeah, I often question like am I a curator? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but I think like what gets me excited about the curation process is just the time with the artist. It's always less about the end product, but it's about getting to know people on this very different level so I can appreciate the end product even more. Um, you have talked about, and when you said this, you posted this several times, it kind of was like, I can do that. What I'm talking about is Black folks starting art collections.
Oh yes, yes. I talked about that.
When you said, and I'm gonna have you explain what you said, but I'm telling you, I was just like, I love art. I was like, I just want art, and I was like, I can never, never, never afford art. But when you said it, I was like, oh my God, you can do that. Go ahead. What did you post? It was a while ago, but
I don't know what I posted though. I don't know what you particularly was saying, like, but I can tell you, like, my manifesto about
yeah,
it. I'll start preaching. But I learned this at Faire. So, running Faire Gallery Café and having to sell people's work all the time. People would come in and they would say, "I love that, but I can't." And I'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm like, I'll sell it to you." And they'd be like, "No, I can't do that. I can't afford $200." And I'm like, "Oh, we'll do payments." And it was
that part.
right. And then, but what you realized was there was a psychological block for people about actually feeling like they deserved it. Right. We know we got to pay our light bill. We know we got to pay our car payment. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You might need to buy some new clothes and that can help you with work. But to actually buy an object that hangs in your house feels like a luxury that is
Yeah.
only afforded of the rich. And that's when I started realizing, like, no, you deserve it. And so I had to coach people through this kind of really intimate process of like, no, actually, like, we'll make small payments. And so people in particular was a really good friend of mine. She didn't think she could purchase this painting of these Black girls in Haiti that this artist had made. She was so into it, and we made payments for a long time. And then when she got to take it home, it was like it just changed. She talks about it
Mm-hmm.
all the time about how important it was for her. And so then once people make that first purchase, it opens up the world for them. But
Yeah.
it resonated with her on such a huge vibration. Art does that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you deserve that. So I feel like my job is to help people understand, like, you can afford it. No,
Right.
the payment arrangement. Rich, even if they're like a millionaire and they buy a $2 million painting, they're making several payments, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they don't tell you that in galleries, but also
No.
like I have gone to galleries my whole life where they see my Black self come in and they put their head down, they don't talk to me, and they don't know that I'm willing to buy stuff, right? So
Right.
again, coaching people through historic trauma to realize that they can do this and they deserve it. Yeah.
That was a lesson right there. That blew my mind when you said that. Like, I was like, oh, I can ask for a payment arrangement and I can collect art. And I that also came after a time that I was at Bellevue Art Museum and they had Kara Walker, and I got to meet the white man who owns several of her work. And if you know me, I'm not going to shy away from particular questions. So I went up to this man and I was like, "How does it feel being a white man owning a Black woman's work?" And he was like, "Well, I don't see it that way. And I was like, "But no." I was like, "So you own a part of this Black woman. What does it mean?" And so it was very interesting, and I became angry at that point in time
Yeah.
because I also was just like, "Oh, in so many ways, you get to own a part of who we are, and I get to own nothing." And so that happened, and then you posted. I remember looking at that Facebook post, and I was just like, "Oh, it is possible to be an art collector at this point in time in my life." And that really, I thank you for that because it really changed the trajectory of me now wanting to purchase more art and seeing who's out there. I just purchased a piece from someone in New York, Jalen Law.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, Amaris Hamer. And so I'm like, I want more now. But without you posting that, I just want you to know, like, thank you. I want to thank you for that because
Oh,
that really just opened my eyes to a lot of things. And um, I think just we need more people like you to speak that into existence in our lives. Because again, it's trauma around what luxury is.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, some of this, like, I get into like these curator circles, and sometimes I just be going off, right? Like, I mean, is right. So, like, I was thinking
mhm,
about this the other day. I was interested in an artwork. I was like, how much is it? And then, I got to call the gallery and ask them how much. And I'm like, why don't you just post your prices? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, it shouldn't be a secret. And then I can determine myself if I can afford it on a payment arrangement or not, or I'll come to you. But everybody
right.
wants to keep it in a closed book and hide it and all this weird stuff. And I'm just like, kind of to what you were saying when you were saying luxury. I'm like, we know how much a Louis Vuitton purse costs. They put the price on there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, just
Yeah.
put the price on there. And so, but what it does is it creates an extra level of fear, because then even I, who I'm used to it, will go like, oh, how much is that? Thinking, I don't know if it's 1,500 or 15,000. If somebody says
Right.
15,000, I'm like, okay, I can't do that. And then I just wasted my time. I feel a little crunchy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, just post your prices. So some of this stuff is like, the industry needs to create better access ways for more people, because you don't know. Somebody might be like, oh no, 15 is cool. I didn't wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to come in and buy that right now. So I think we got to shift some of that. And then, well, no, you were saying something else about art collecting, but um,
Just the trauma around it. And yeah.
don't. Again, that's one of the things they don't tell you. They don't tell you that they do payment arrangements, but everybody does payment. Oh, that's what I was going to say. One of the movies I love is Urban Dorothy, and
Mm,
it's about a postal worker and a librarian who had one of the most important art collections of the 20th century. And they literally were like going to artists and being like, here's $10 a month. You know what I mean? And but they paid it off. And so you watch this movie with like all these famous artists who were like, oh, if Urban Dorothy were coming to your studio, you knew you were gonna have food to eat that week.
mm,
And I was like, that's one of the things I've had to also help people understand.
mm,
Art dealer is like, people think, oh, well, I can't pay for it all right now. And I'm like, artists need money right now. That work is going back into storage. We make work, and then we're like, damn, we want to sell it, right? So
mm.
the payment arrangement or not, we're trying to eat, we're trying to pay our bills. So that's the other thing people don't realize. It's like, no, buy the work on a payment arrangement. They're cool. It makes
Yes.
everything.
Yes. I again, I thank you for that. And I think like a few people posted that, gatekeeping and Elisheba talked me into being a fearless art collector of pieces I thought I could never afford. So I mean, just again, yeah, the gatekeeping and again, we don't feel like we have the right to even enter those gates.
Exactly. Yeah.
you know,
Well, there's
there.
this code that you're supposed to understand, and you're like, yeah. I had this really interesting experience. I went to the art fair a couple years ago,
Hmm.
the McLean Thomas print, and it was listed. I think it was listed at 15K, and I had just gotten paid, so I was like, I could do a payment arrangement over like 2 years.
Right.
Thing like it was going to be a long time, but I was like, this would be worth it, and I could put like $1,000 down. So I go up to them, and I was like, I'd like a payment arrangement, and they were like, yeah, and then they were like, no, actually it's 50,000, and I was like, oh, just kidding, psych, I'm playing, and I walked away, right? And then this other black art collector in town, and I had drinks, and she was like, that was really weird, because we both were saying, she was like, her work isn't priced that much. So then she went and found out how much McLean Thomas's prints are worth, and it was what I said at first, 15,000, so, or something like that, or 5,000. It was something like I could afford over time.
Right.
She showed me, so I was like, oh, that white dealer didn't want to sell me that work. And again, it's a
Whoa.
artist, right? And it was this moment of just kind of like, wow, you didn't want my money.
Right. Right.
So there's that too.
Yes. Yes. With that being said, why do you think it's important, especially for people that are Black, that are curators, that do this work? Why do you think it's important to create spaces for Black people to come in and be around art?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think art is like an embodied part of our existence. I
Hmm.
just think the visual art world is not, in the sense of like you go to a white cube gallery and look at paintings, right? There's so much elitism that is kind of wrapped up into that. But
Right.
I've always kind of been interested in the interdisciplinary nature of things. So I talk a lot about how I've been really inspired by Gertrude Stein, who is this badass Jewish poet from, the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And she had these salons in her house where like Hemingway hung out, and Picasso hung out. And I was always like really interested in like how these people had all these different art mediums and hung out together. And then I would think about, like, you think about the Black Panthers, and you think about there's
Right.
art movements or ways that people move together and they have different interests. And I've always thought like the way the future is like an arts collective. But I say that to say like, yes, Wa Na Wari shows visual art, and that's really important. But I think what resonates with people is that it's also like music and dance and theater. And so whatever your jam is, there's going to be some of that there. And then there's also opportunities to collaborate. So we had Jordan Keith at the beginning of the year, who's a poet, come in and teach poetry. I love her. She's a really good friend.
I know.
But she taught poetry based on our visual artworks, right? And so I'm really interested in the cross contamination, for lack of a better word, of like art disciplines. What would it mean for me and you to work together, right? You as a dancer, and then me as
Happening soon.
so right. So I think Black folks want spaces to be able to create and experiment just like anybody else, but also feel safe.
Yeah.
It's so personal. So yeah, that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, there's Soul Child. Thank you so much again for having me there. Yes. I think again, what you are creating for people in Seattle is a space to feel welcomed inside of a world that may seem so far outside of what we can imagine. And I know I've mentioned W Art Museum, I know Seattle Art Museum, the Fry Museum, like these are places that we can go to, but there's also this veil of like uncomfortableness, if that's a word, to walk into those spaces. So when we walk into Wa Na Wari and we see like, oh, this is how I can feel around art. Because art is also a feeling. It's not just a visual thing. Like you can feel something walking into a space. So again, just the work that you do. How has your work been influenced by your parents?
Oh yeah.
Who's your father? Like I'm trying not, like your dad's somebody in the world.
My dad is a famous writer. Charles Johnson. And he wrote a book called Middle Passage. And that's kind of, it's very interesting. One, like, the literary world, like you can be famous in the literary world and still like live a relatively normal life. It's not like being a famous actor. So there's that. But I remember my dad working on Middle Passage. And then I was in the 3rd grade when he won the National Book Award. And I remember going to school the next day, and all these teachers from across my elementary school came into my classroom and said,
wow,
we have to have your dad come here. We have to have you. And so that was the first moment where I was like, oh, whatever just happened was really big.
Yes.
Like, big deal. Because, why is that teacher down there want to talk to me or whatever? And so I don't always talk about it because then it gets, sometimes weird. But he has always been supportive of me in my artistry. So he grew up as a cartoonist, basically, making cartoons. And there was a famous cartoonist named Lawrence Lawyer. And he wrote to him and sent his comics into him. And he told him that he could do it and go to art school. And my grandfather told him he needed to get a degree that would be useful. So he went and got a journalism degree. But he always dreamed of going to art school. And then he ended up getting his PhD in philosophy. And so his work deals with issues of Blackness, but philosophy and also Buddhism. And so when I wanted to go to art school, he was excited. Like, unlike most parents, don't waste your money.
Right.
I'm going to live through you. And even when I paint, he'll be like, I don't know how to paint. And I'm like, I don't know how to draw. but it was really, so yeah, when my son was born, I was really feeling like, man, I wish there was a Harry Potter for Black kids, you know?
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him and said, why don't you write a book with me? And he was like, okay, let's do it. And it's been really cathartic. It's the adventures of Emory Jones, boy science wonder, named after my son. But
Yeah.
in many ways, Emory Jones is really my dad, and his best friend Gabby is really me. And we're like, just like art again through stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So real stories and of people we know. I mean, it's fictional, but like we definitely tapped into like our younger selves of what we would want, what type of adventure story we would want to read. So it's great to be able to talk to him. He's one of my friends. So that's great. And then my mother is a really incredible woman. She's a social work, got her degree in social work, has just like a really big heart, has donated to lots of incredible organizations in the past and stuff like that. So they're always there. They're always in my art somewhere. And like I said, I'm researching the past, and it's in my work in an interesting way. I've been interested in migration and Black travel and what does it mean for folks to travel. And it, like I said, whenever I started body of work, it's always a question that I'm trying to answer. So that's what I'm, right? If we were brought here forcibly, that is not a travel experience, right? But then all these cultures are constantly migrating for safety, and you know, the Great Migration is really that, right? Black folks really looking for a better opportunity. Me trying to understand that for myself.
Right. We have a question. I rarely open this up to questions, but I was just like, I'm excited about the conversation and people are excited. So I was like, I will open this up to questions. This is from Nikisha. What is your ultimate dream for Black arts in Seattle? Ooh, that's a good one.
Well, you know, I went to New York. I mean, I went to New York last year, but I also went the year before. But the year before, I was able to curate an experience that was entirely Black. I could go see whatever Black art exhibitions, Black film. You can go, like any day of the week, you can go do something Black. We're here. There was a day a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, where it was like, oh, it was a weekend where like there was like every Black arts organization was doing something. And I remember a friend of mine, like people were like, if you don't get out there and see this stuff right now, you're going to miss it. And then a friend of mine was like, I can't hear that because going to Black art feeds me, and feeling like if I weekend because I have something else going on, she's like, it's like she got in the scarcity mindset, right? And I feel like the future is going to be that all this beautiful Black art is going to be happening all the time. You're never going to miss it because it's always going to be happening.
Right.
That's my goal for Seattle. Then it's not like, oh, I got to go to that because I don't know when I'm going to see the next Black dance piece. It's going to be another 3 months. You know what I mean? It's just going to be always, and it's going to be funded, fully funded.
Right.
In Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to make sure, Nikisa, not Nikisha, Nikisa.
Nikisa.
Yes, let me get those names right. I love that thought of just like there will consistently be Black art that people can go to, and it's not a scarcity. Emory, what are your dreams for Emory?
Oh.
And we know Emory has his own dreams, but what are your dreams?
Answer full time. All well, you know, like I think I found out I was having a boy, and I called 2 of my friends who have young Black men that they're raising, and I was like, how do we do this? How do we raise a Black man in America to spirit is retained and they feel like they can, you know, harness joy all the time? And there's so many examples in our community of these incredible Black mothers doing that. So luckily I have people to tap into and ask questions. But, you know, like one that it's a duality of feeling completely secure and firm as who he is as a Black man, but also not feeling like there's any barriers for him that he has to cross, you know? And I think we look at Will and Jada's kids, right? Like somebody, that's what true Black kids, free Black kids look like. And there's a lot of truth to that. Some of it has to do with their money, but they know they're Black, they can types of stuff, and they're not, it doesn't feel like they're hindered by the tough stuff around race, you know?
Right.
And I think that's the future. We want all our kids to just be able to flourish and not ever have to hear the N-word or, you know, process what that means about their humanity and all this type of stuff. Which is why, you know, he loves Wa Na Wari. He's always like, can I go there? Because he gets to see cool people and have dance and I think, you know, having spaces like that for our kids to just know they can see themselves reflected back to them is really important.
Right. That's awesome. You know, a free Black kid is the most powerful thing in this world. You know, and that is freedom from the systems that we place on them as adults. Like if we can get rid of that, Black children are some of the most brilliant children in the world. And so yes, thank you for that. Yes, more free Black children. And that means free them up in your house first. Like, you know, take the chains off in the house so they can be free, and then, you know, they'll be okay. They'll be okay. What is next for you as an artist?
Oh, good question. So I have a public art practice. A lot of that is with my collaborator, Kristen Ramirez. And so
Kristen.
I love her. Yeah. So right now we're working on a permanent artwork in Burien. We're super excited about it. And it is taking an old Black Nigerian folktale that I had read as a child called Why We Work. And the story is, give like a quick synopsis, but the story basically is that people used to just grab the sky and eat it. And that's how we got our sustenance. And then the sky warned people that they were wasting pieces of the sky and that it would go far away. And so eventually enough people wasted the sky, but they went far, far, far away, and that's why we have to work. And so using that story as the premise of kind of like enjoying and having a responsibility around the earth and our environment. So we're super excited about that. And then we have a piece going in Tacoma. So I have that part of my practice. And then I was supposed to have a show at For Culture one day when the pandemic is over.
Gonna happen.
And that work is kind of a continuation of some work I was doing around the unaffordability in Seattle.
Okay.
My grandfather was a gambler. He loved to go to the horse track. He really loved that. But he played lotto. He did it all. And I have a too. So, but really thinking about the dream of gambling, right? Like if you the lotto right now, it says it's called. They say it's the Department of Imagination, which is the name of the show. Which I thought, oh, what an interesting concept of like, if money is not an issue, then you can dream up anything. And that's what me and my friends, we used to sit around at Faire actually, and we'd all put money in and play the lotto, and we would sit around and dream about what we would do if we won. And so I think that ties into like not having enough resources, right? Like, and like people feeling like, okay, if I didn't have to just struggle to pay rent, I could do all these other things. And so that shows really into that. And through my research, I learned, because I was really interested in the numbers game, and I didn't realize that the lotto, it was stolen from Black folks from the numbers game. That's how it started, right? So I love the research part of my practice and just learning more things. And then that leads me on another path about what I want to do and investigate.
That's awesome. Thank you. Look, folks, I've kept Elisheba long enough, but I could probably just do this all day. So many questions. Wa Na Wari, give them money.
Hit that Cash App.
That Cash App is pinned. So I was just saying, give them money. Y'all know me. Y'all look, if you watch me and you've heard me talk, y'all know I'm about giving Black people money to sustain the work that they do. Because again, we get asked to do $1 million work for $10. And a lot of we show up for that $10 and we do the work. But let's change that. If you have enjoyed Wa Na Wari and if you are looking forward to future events, once we're out of the pandemic, they need sustainability. And like, I'm just gonna say that. I don't know what their financial situation is. I'm just gonna say they need sustainability. So
well, and Soul Child said, as our Cash App spelled correctly, if that's not it, because I don't want to get out of the thing, but
that's what I got.
Try Wa Na Wari Seattle.
Yes.
Because I called myself looking it up before I sent it, but if that doesn't work, do Wa Na Wari Seattle.
I
And
may
I
have
do
not
want to
put the
shout out
capitals.
CD Forum before you
Thank
finish and say they need money too. Hit up CD Forum and hit up Langston, who's also
like
doing direct
yes,
support to Black artists. So all of us are working together. You know, you can fund all
right.
three if you got the money. So that's what I'll say.
Yes. Yes, I missed some capital letters in Wa Na Wari. So if you're not, it's capital WA, capital NA, capital WARI. I just missed that. I can read, so child. I can spell a little bit, just a little bit. I just didn't put the capitals in. Um, you know what? I love when Black folks like, is that right? Did you do it right?
Right. We love you, soul child.
Love you. I love this. Again, thank you, Elisheba, for taking the time out your day. It was great to talk to you. Please hit up Wa Na Wari, hit up Elisheba if you want to know more, find out more. Talk to her about how to start your art collection today, Black folks.
I do it
Like, go ahead, say that again.
I said I do it for free, so just email me, elishabajohnson@gmail.com. And I might take a minute to get back to you, but I always get back to you.
And even if she does it for free, you can still give her some money. I'm just saying, you know. You're welcome, Nikisa. I'm gonna get that right. Thank you all so much. Next week we have our last intimate conversations for the year with Eve Sanford. That is December 19th at 3 p.m. I love what I do because Elisheba, we talk here and there and we go, but to really like find out more about you, like I'm honored and I thank you so. I'm choking. Thank you so much for sharing this. Like I learned so much and I'm pumped up after this conversation.
Thank you. I love talking to you. And your face is beat, by the way. I knew I had to come correct.
Look, so let me just tell you, this is a 2-minute beat only because I was in another beat and I was like, I gotta go. And I was pressed for time. Like, I'm gonna tell all the secrets. It was like, okay, is this good enough? Okay, great. So it's a 2-minute beat.
Great. Well,
thank you all so much.
See you
and
later.
you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will see you all next week. Bye.